Welcome back. Chapter 3, Social and Mobile Marketing, how technology has evolved the marketing landscape. Come along with me and we'll go through the chapter today, discuss a variety of different aspects in terms of the framework for social media, how we get you to engage, and also the aspect that social media is not a separate component. It is integrated within the core marketing body. Social media does not fly on its own. It must be one included within your print aspects, your event aspects, online aspects, and how we really build communities within social media. So come along with me and we'll go through chapter 3. Technology evolution over time. You have all seen this. It is a core aspect in terms of where we started well before many of you were ever born to where we are today and even beyond today, 2016 and beyond. Where are we with technology? Yes, we have the sphere in terms of social media. We have mobile gaining. We have video marketing in the billions that people are investing to get the right message out to consumers. Then we have gaming, a very, very, very large part in terms of product placement and engaging based on audience level, demographic, psychographic, and of course the final piece, which who knows what's after this, augmented reality, Oculus Rift, bringing consumers into the moment right at the relative time. So come with me. I want you to take a look at this and just an overview, historic overview of technology and what it's done, and let's talk about marketing as it is today with social media injected into it. So the 4E framework for social media. Overall, you know the 4 Ps. We've gone over save, solution, access, value, education. Well, social media also has components. And based on how many messages we get a day, how many do we get a day? Probably over 5,000 messages. So how are we to understand from a marketing perspective when we have the right message at the right time, on the right platform, with the right frequency to the right consumer? Well, we have some framework that's involved in it, and it starts along the way of excitement. Think about social media. Think about all the messages and what stands out to you. What really, really engages you as a consumer. What excites you? Because at first we have to stand out and excite you. And from there, we want to educate you. So if it's overall excitement about a new Snapchat opportunity or something new that Coca-Cola is doing, we want to excite you and then educate you so you know why it's important for you to understand. Then after that, going through, we want you to experience it in whatever way you possibly can. So whether you're experiencing it through an event, through Oculus Rift, through gaming, wherever component that we can touch upon with you and we have your engagement. And then after experience, hoping that you engage with the brand, trial, action, whatever it takes. It's all about engagement, lifting up to becoming a brand loyalist, and then obviously being a brand ambassador for brands and really speaking and having the ultimate, which is word of mouth influence and authority. Exciting the customer. How important is that? I want all of you to think about a brand. I think about your favorite brand and how it engages with you. Now I want you to think about a new brand, something that has just come into your lens, into your focus. What did that brand do to engage with you? Did you see it on a Super Bowl commercial? Did you see it online? Did you see it on Billboard? How did you see it and how did social media tie in? Were you then on a Facebook page for that brand? Were you following it on Twitter? Were you looking at it on Instagram, Snapchat? However you were, how did that brand really excite you and let you know that they were there and it was a message and all of a sudden tapping into an interest level of yours? So that's level 1, excitement. Educating the customer. How many different times we can all remember possibly when the Apple iPhone came out and there was a lot of people that were obviously interested in it, and the early on people are actually innovators, not early adopters. But for the rest of them, early innovators, early adopters, and then adopters, what did Apple have to do? They had to educate the consumer in terms of this brand new platform, the iPhone. And then even when they came out with their next segment, the iPad, they had to educate the importance of it, how you would utilize it, and why it would be beneficial in your life. So consider that. Consider any sort of brand and when it really educates the consumer. Pharmaceutical brands do this a lot in terms of allergy medications. Why take an allergy medication? Maybe better quality of life. Looking at that aspect. How many different brands work to educate you about them and what their benefits are, what their features are, and then all of a sudden you're engaged with them before you know it. Next up, experiencing the product. So a couple of years ago, this was great. IKEA came out with this idea, augmented reality, through their catalogs, where you can actually see the IKEA furniture in your home. I want you to take a look at this link, and this is one of many, many experiences throughout the world, throughout multi-billion-dollar corporations that are working really hard to bring you a real-time experience, but also in the moment of truth. and engaging the consumer. So for those of you, and many of you I'm sure are very familiar with the share a Coke concept as well as the naming concept. When this went on, it was a beta test, meaning it was a real trial to see, would this be a concept that would roll out? And it's been incredibly successful. We actually have a senior vice president on the marketing advisory board who has worked with us and told us all about the millions and millions of names that were submitted, names that they would put on cans, names that were most requested, and even inappropriate things that people wanted to put on cans. How did they manage that? It wasn't just a national effort, it was a global effort. A lot of it started out in the UK, then transferred over to the United States, and then took over in every single country where Coca-Cola had distribution. So in terms of this and looking at engaging the consumer, what better way than putting your name on it? And next up, talking about engaging with consumers, there's the good, there's the bad, there's the ugly. Social media has the benefit of making your brand thrive. You can be the consumer, you can be on the podium, you can be that brand that's speaking to so many, or it can dive. As we know, lots of brands have issues in social media. A lot of people will go there first to complain. Take a look at this video, which was done after United Airlines did not listen to a important one of their passengers regarding their guitar. And look at this whole story of what occurred, all through the voice of one consumer that impacted and dominoed millions and millions of people to come online and support and reshare this video, really showcasing the lack of customer service on United's part. Take a look. So categories of social media. Let's look at this from an overall broad standpoint. Now, I know you may, from a personal perspective, say, I know social media. I know, what pages I'm on, but what are companies doing? Why are companies looking? What companies look at in terms of social network sites or platforms. So Facebook, a lot of companies build a community on there. Really, some core events, want to engage. Twitter might be a little bit of fast news, where you're following up, but maybe they're the expert in that news, so you're always going to follow them. So consider, for example, Nike. Nike's a great brand to consider. Twitter, they may put out a lot about their brand, about athletes, about health, wellness, everything that surrounds the athlete. Then on Facebook, they may talk about their initiatives, whether it's sustainability, whether it's marathons, whatever it may be, they may have that piece. On Instagram, you may actually see the showcase, the picture of the ultimate athlete and how they really, really bring their brand together. And then maybe on Snapchat, there's different filters. So considering all these social media platforms and how brands approach them. Thought sharing sites, many years ago it was big. They're still big. They're called blogs. How many blogs do you follow? Are they influential people? How many do companies do blogs? How impactful are they? Look at different corporations, even competitors. Nike versus Adidas. Does one have different platforms than the other? Are they really talking to the same overall consumer, but through different platforms? And how do those platforms and what they communicate impact their share of voice, SOV? And then, of course, media sharing sites. All the different media sharing sites, and of course, YouTube, which is the #2 search engine in the world next to Google, is a great media sharing site. A lot of media companies go on, pitch news stories, and just expand out even further. And this world has gotten even larger with the aspect of social and technology and evolution. So Dunbar number, we're going to go over this really quickly because I always enjoy talking to students about this. This is something you won't find in your chapter book. It's something that was a study that was done many, many, many years ago by a professor and educator in mass numbers. And he determined by looking back, way back into tribal days, that tribes would break off after they reached 150. They'd consistently break off. If you look at government, if you look at other officials, that number really rings through. Why? Because Dunbar believed you could only have 150 of something. 150 friends, 150 people that you could really have a relationship with, an engagement with. So when you think about your Facebook friends, think about this. If you have over 150, could you identify every single one of them if you saw them on the street, if you saw them at a coffee shop and sit down with them? So it goes on over the aspect of quality over quantity. Smaller numbers, better, deeper relationships with people, and that's what brands want as well. But, of course, this was challenged, Dunbar was challenged by another philosopher who said, 150 of what? Why can't I have 150 family members, 150 friends, 150 people that I work with? Segmenting all of that. So any theory, obviously, in time can be challenged, but I ask it for you to look back as well. Your numbers and how intimate, and when you share things on your pages, do you have certain fields, or is it just public for everything? You share everything with every friend you've got tied to Facebook, or is it certain ones, only close friends, not acquaintances, when you share certain stories versus other stories? What is your strategy? And then look at brand strategy and how they approach when they're going to send something out versus a smaller, maybe closed group where you feel a little bit elevated because you have an increased opportunity to directly impact with the brand. The Skim, if none of you have heard of it, is a great media news site top line event. They have the Skim, they have their website, their emails, which you get information, but then they have a closed group called Skimbassadors. There's only about 6,000 or so in the country. I'm one of them. And you get to become a Skimbassador when you share Skim with about 10 or 20 people. And then they award you, so you're on the inside. So what are companies doing to really give those special privileges? Almost like a brand loyalty card. You get a little bit more special privilege than the average consumer will get following that brand. And so looking at it from here, the overall social units, and as we look at from here, support group, people who seek advice from. How many of your friends have you seen or look at it from an overall support group? I need your help, whether it's I need your help, vote for this, pray for this. We know those type of people that go to certain channels just for overall support. Do companies do that as well? When companies are in a bad position within the marketplace, do they go out to their community at first and say, this is the truth, just so you can hear it? Take a look, see what companies are out there. Sympathy groups, special ties, frequent contacts. So there may be groups that are shared, whether it's Mothers Against Drunk Driving or Save the Next Girl or other components where you're tied by a passion. And really at the core, all of you have what's called a POP, a point of pain or a point of passion. So whether that point of pain is something that was lost or a point of passion could be something amazing, such as Hokie football, winning, etc. Everyone gets on board. You can see it through all sorts of feeds when Virginia Tech starts to feed it out. So band acquaintances, less frequent. So those are kind of acquaintances, people that you know. Maybe if you had a message publicly that you wanted to show, where you're running a marathon and you want support, maybe it would go out to all those public sectors of yours that you're friends with, but more from a band perspective. And then mega band and tribe, which are larger social units. Who's your tribe? Who do you go out to? Think about brands. Who are their tribes? Who are they overall? Think about from brands from Coca-Cola to Nike to Pampers diapers. Where can they find those consumers that are most engaged using their brand and can influence others? This is the world of social media. It comes down to data analysis, tracking, trending, right message at right time, finding the influencers, tapping those influencers, and then yes, having those influencers be your word of mouth, because they have a lot more say and trust from their tribes versus a big brand coming to them with their tribes, with their message. And going down again, the Dunbar number in terms of any number becoming dysfunctional. I just want you to kind of look at it. And once again, as Dunbar said, 150. And when they start to break out even further and further, bureaucracy, issues, people start not getting along, people start losing the focus of the core goal. So this is, once again, Dunbar's main point about why 150 is the max number you can have in any social setting, any business setting, any friendship setting, because otherwise people start to break off and break into their own tribes with their own goals and their own visions. Social networking sites, let's go through this. Many people are on it, but do you know what role you play? Are you a curator? Do you create? Do you listen? Do you share, or you look at it from a professional perspective? We'll go through really quickly these aspects so you can determine, where do I sit in all of this? And maybe you're a different role based on a different platform. Maybe on LinkedIn, you're curating and you're possibly providing information because you're trying to build your personal brand. You want to be the sports marketing expert. You want to be the accounting expert or finance or industrial design aspect. Whatever it may be, you want to be that expert, and you're curating information on LinkedIn versus Twitter. Maybe you're just retweeting. Maybe you're just a sharer. And on other pieces as well, depending on where you are, maybe you're doing a lot of sharing and reading, or maybe you're just listening and learning and educating yourself so then you can take some of that information and then build your own content. So just looking at, and you can look at the length of time on social media and the different pieces that involve. So how much time do creators spend? And what does that look like in terms of creators and less than an hour, 1 to 2 hours? So, about 76% creating that content really right from the start and understanding who their audience is, what type of message they need that week. So think about it from a brand perspective. How many of these brands, how many times do they post each week? How much time does it take to create that content? They probably have an agency they're working with to create the content. And then looking behind the scenes of the data to see, was the content sticky? Did people like it? Did people then possibly share it? Was this something that I should replicate, or this content was solid that I could look at, or this type of content on these channels did not work? Go back to the game plan and modify your content overall. Then you obviously have bonders, people that really, really look and are connected, and they'll spend a little bit of time, less than an hour a day, 47%, kind of bonding in, maybe checking in with your brand, seeing what you do. They're not spending a ton of time on social, but overall they're directed at where they really want to look. Then you have sharers. Obviously, most of community falls into sharers. We want to share information, but then as we get a little more in depth with social media, are we sharing based on what our personal brand is? Are we sharing based on who we are? So for an example, my core things that I share and that I model myself against are marketing pieces, strategic, recruitment, personal branding, all of those 4 core pieces. So anytime I see something about it, and if it's a really unique article not a lot of people have shared, I'll share it, I'll put a small commentary, or I'll create pieces like that. What is your brand? What is your core? If you look around corporations, they're all trying to build their USP, unique selling proposition, their actual core, what they offer to consumers. Think about that as your own brand. And when you look at whether it's possible future companies that you want to work for, or possible people that you're a mentor to, how are you sharing that and how are you building up your expertise in this area? And then obviously professionals. And I will tell you that for most, LinkedIn is the platform that I utilize probably about 90% of the day, every single day, because I'm learning from other professionals. It also, if you follow companies, it provides you with opportunities when jobs are open, when roles are switched. It is probably one of the most impactful platforms that I can recommend today. And if you're not on it, you absolutely should be, especially if you want to tie into the world and look at what big companies are coming into, what kind of content, and how you can learn from them as well. Media sharing sites, obviously, they encourage consumers to engage. So kind of taking a look at it from here, whether it's YouTube channels, how many different channels are you subscribing to? Is that a big thing anymore? Or is it, YouTube phenomenon? Think about all of these different blogs and vlogs of people and the millions of followers that they have. And who's watching these? Is it our age? Is it college age? Is it older? Is it high schoolers? Is it middle schoolers? Who are watching these people that are filming their lives every single day and have millions and millions of views because people just want to learn from them or just watch a family? The other piece of it is media sharing sites. When you go behind the scenes of Coca-Cola to see how the sodas are made or see how the syrup is made, or even Hokie football, behind the scenes, seeing them training, seeing them practice. These are all opportunities for media sharing sites, not just for them to put them on social, but also for you to get a behind the scenes and feel special and feel extra connected to that brand because you're the loyalist with that brand. And thought sharing, obviously, blogs. We talked about it before. How many blogs do you follow? Do you yourself write blogs? Or blogs are something that were really, really great early 2000s that were coming out and people started to really, really look at it, and then they got more structure around 2010. But now is it something that we have time for? With the amount of information that we get, and yes, 5,000 in general, but consider yourself, track yourself every day. Wake up one day and see how many messages do you get. And if every single footprint that you take in a day was a footprint on social media, imagine that, because that is what's occurring. But double that or triple that number, because the way you click around on social media and being followed showcases your whole virtual footprint for the day. What are you looking at? How are you being profiled by other companies? And mobile and social. Obviously, mobile apps are huge. I use a mobile app constantly. It's called the Starbucks mobile app, and I'm able to see how much I purchase throughout the year. Of course, there's benefits to that. Every single time you hit a certain price point, you get a free item. It could be a drink or it could be food. Starbucks modified their model. It used to be a certain amount of items that you purchased, and then that would lead to a reward, which only could be used on a drink. Now they've expanded it to a drink as well as food. Think about all the mobile apps. How many times do you go into a store and look around to see, is there a mobile app? Is there a mobile coupon that I can utilize? It's become secondary. Even our banking, mobile deposits. Gone are the days where you have to worry about losing a check, and I know many of us might have been worried about that years ago, but now with mobile deposits, it's easier than ever before. So the aspect of mobile and where it is growing, and you can see that too in terms of brands, whether it's university and are they mobile ready, or brands and where they are when you go on their mobile website to see, is it a little bit different? Obviously the framework is different when you look on a mobile website, but is it giving you that same experience? Brands understand that from a consumer perspective, whether they're looking at their phone, their iPad, or their computer, through that lens, they're looking at the brand in the same way. Nothing should change in terms of the experience and how they visualize it. So from the brand perspective, the way we structure it should be absolutely the same experience we give back to the consumer. Geo-targeting. We've got some places, and I'm sure some of you remember the days of Foursquare check-in, which is now Swarm, or other places. What's the latest thing that we really are enjoying? Geo-filters. We've been building and creating geo-filters for Snapchat. So we did one, whether it was the Pamplin picnic, and it was for 2 hours in a certain location on Tech's campus. We created the design with brand assets, then submitted it to Snapchat. Within 2 days, we were approved, and the filter cost all of $6.43. What did we see? We got the data analytics behind the geo filter to understand how many people actually use that filter. At that time, for that picnic, 59 people utilized the filter, but it resulted in 2,200 views. So that's pretty, in terms of a one-on-one perspective. And those 59 people are not unique. Someone could have been using it multiple times. But thinking about the expansion, and we go back to influence, word of mouth, how many people are following that person and seeing the filter. Then, recently, we had Gobblerfest. What do we do at Gobblerfest? Same thing, but made it a little bigger. We took a geo filter and we expanded it in terms of the location, so a larger space, and the time. Instead of 2 hours, now 4 hours. And now we're going to be getting reports back to see how many people actually utilized our filter. Where were they? Demographic, psychographic, any information that we can get, because then we'll utilize that data to modify future Snapchat filters, but also to target the consumers that we're looking. And who are the consumers a lot of times? The students on campus. So they are our consumers and who we want to respond to, and we want to make sure that our content matches what they're expecting. Firms' use of social and mobile, you can see and you can go across it, whether what they're trying to do. Are they trying to excite them? Are they trying to educate them, give them an experience, and then engage them? And at what point do they use certain things? What point are they using thought-sharing sites like blogs? Education, a lot of times. When they're trying to really get you to overall engage, maybe it's media sharing, maybe it's thought sharing, maybe it's mobile, but nothing lives in isolation. You can, from a strategic standpoint, look at the 4E framework and determine that these are the different pieces, but you need to modify. You need to play around with all of them to say, you could keep posting on a blog and wanting to educate your audience and then seeing nobody's reading my blog. You need to change it up. You need to decide what platform you've got the most people. As a friend at Nike says, fish where the fish are, and determine how you can own that platform and drive people back continuously again and again. So, LAD, anything in life. This actually should follow anything in life. Most of the time people, the last thing they do is listen. They want to talk. They want to respond. If you're a good listener, especially if you sit on social media channels, analyze the responses. Analyze, is that a live social media channel? Is there someone live behind there that's giving you feedback, that is interacting and have a conversation with you, versus someone that's pushing out information? Great aspect. A couple years ago, I sat on the Susan G. Komen Facebook page. It was during the month of October. So what did I expect? A lot of conversation and feedback about breast cancer awareness. October is the month. Instead, at that point, Susan G. Komen had just divorced themselves from Planned Parenthood. So Susan G. Komen was posting things on their Facebook page about Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but the consumers that were watching and listening were posting and saying how frustrated they were over and over again. During a 1-week time span, Susan G. Komen never responded once to any of those consumers. They continued to push information out, but didn't do anything. That was a really, really bad example. They weren't listening or analyzing or doing. They were just pushing it out like a machine. And I will tell you, the biggest thing you can do with social media, it's not to not have a social media page, it's to have it and not do anything with it, or not respond when your consumers are waiting. That's the biggest way to dive. The way to thrive, be there in the moment with them. That they're spending their time on your page, you need to be there as well. Social media is 24/7, 365. It's not 9 to 5. Consumers are expecting all access all the time. Listening, considering your sentiment analysis. So this is interesting as well. Let's talk about the word love. Consider the word love. And most of us would say that's a positive sentiment, isn't it? Well, let's look at Virginia Tech. Student could say, I just love Virginia Tech, didn't get in again. So if we weren't there to actually go in and understand who sent that, the number of followers, their influence, and actually that sentiment was negative, it would just claim it as a positive and move on. You need the human interaction factor to go in there. And on the same piece, think about it this way. Virginia Tech Hokies won. I'm not hating that. The word hate is negative, but in the context of where it was put, it's positive. Consider this. And we do a lot of work behind data analytics to understand reasoning, sentiment, to weigh the person's influential sphere, and then to determine where they are as in terms of an overall influencer and a brand ambassador and who they are. And when you pull certain comments out and see just the rest, is somebody impacting the comments or change your overall share of voice because of one noise piece, someone who's giving all that feedback, but at the same point, the rest of the community doesn't feel that. So there's lots of ways to play around with data, to plug and play, and a lot of different platforms beyond just Google Analytics, lots more. This is Radian6 Overview. We use this as a special piece within the college. It now actually is called Social Studio, and we have the ability all in one platform to publish, to analyze those posts, and then to reach out specifically to key audience members and understand how what their sentiment means, and to be able to track and code this. This is a special software system. It's under the Salesforce Corporation, and few student organizations or colleges actually utilize this. We're one of the few that really does it and utilize it to a point of when we're really trying to understand people, and then even looking further to seeing different generations and how generations are reacting to different feedback, whether it's millennials or Gen Z, or obviously Gen AA, the next generation, and what they're saying and how they're commenting and what platforms they're utilizing. So this is a really quantitative statistical software system that we utilize behind the College of Pamplin to understand what people are saying based on our channels, but it also goes with, depending on how much you're putting out there in the channels, that's how much noise. So if you're not putting out a lot, you're not going to get a lot of feedback as well, clearly. Just an example of an overall dashboard, and you can see whether it's word clouds or spikes or other things. And here's where we're talking about in terms of sentiment, seeing different people. And on this example here, it's one of our career executive director of career services. What is obviously his sentiment will be positive, but what's his influence? Does he have a lot of impact? How many people are following? How many people are really resharing his content? And when we know that, is he someone we should target to say, Stuart, please share our content. We know you have a large share of voice that's positive within this target audience, the target audience of 18 to 22, and we want them to know that we are supporting them, but you have a closer relationship than we do, something along those lines. And analyzing, so if you've ever been involved in any form, and it's not just social media and websites, you're analyzing everything. So, obviously with Google Analytics, you can see how many page hits, how many views, bounce rate. What's bounce rate? Well, we overall strive for a bounce rate of under 20%, meaning that consumers come to our page and under 20% of them bounce off. So basically, our content that we have is sticky. It's informative, people are interested in it, and they stay there a while and read, and maybe go onto another page and read. But people that are on our website for less than 10 seconds that bounce off immediately are people that we're not capturing. So how can we capture them? How do we understand? What kind of device are they coming through? Do we have the website set mobilely? Is it accurate for that? What is their language? What's their behavior throughout the website when they first get on? How do we really engage them at different parts with possibly different messages? Think about it when you're on a website, anything at all. How often does the need help now chat box come up? Does that frustrate you, or does that help for you? Consider that. People are always looking behind the scenes, and Google Analytics is one piece of that, and not just audiences and demographics and psychographics, but your behavior and what you're doing and how that translates to someone else's behavior, and how we can profile different people, and even look at statistical testing, A/B messaging. One message to you, a different message to somebody else. Which message worked the best to create the most engagement for a brand? And either look at a conversion in terms of what was your goal, to get so many people to click on a form to download so they submit something for your organization, or request for information. How many people would love that? From a college standpoint, admissions, that's what we look towards. So these are some of the goals that we have. But when you look at overall conversions, just so you know, it's got to be an action. It's not just idling on a page, an action, something you're filling out or downloading, or some sort of actual action that moves your experience possibly further to a possible trial or to a full-on customer service experience. And here, you can kind of take a look at here, the type of analytic in terms of content, how it's used, and overall competitors. And this gives you a line listing of so many different brands and different software packages. So if you're in an organization or if you're trying to build your own brand, I encourage you to really research different ways to measure your impact. And if it's for a company, absolutely. You can start at the core with Google Analytics for your website, and then if you have a couple of channels, Facebook and Twitter, there's plenty of plugins. Facebook obviously has a great behind-the-scenes dashboard in terms of metrics and audience analysis and notifications, but there's also other plugins that you can get for free that can also tell you a temperature rating of how well your social is doing based on your community, based on your goals, and what you've accomplished in a short amount of time or a long period of time. And this just gives you a little quick overview in terms of how we look at our analysis. This is for Pamplin, just showing Facebook pages. Some of the stats are a little bit delayed, but you can see the 18% increase. Then we'll look and dive down a little bit. When did the increase occur? Was there an activity? Was there an event that we had? And who started to follow us at that point? Are there any influencers? So every piece of data that you get, you can dig down even deeper. So consider data or any aspect like an onion. Continue to peel and peel and peel. And at the core is your golden piece. But you have to work to get to that golden piece. You cannot, social media and impact does not just occur by you posting 30 or 40 times a day. Most of the time that's assumed as spam, and you will lose consumers more than you will gain them. So you have to write again, right message, right time, right consumer, right frequency, okay, and considering all those pieces. First and main, another one to just take a look at, just trying to expose you to a little bit of analytics behind the scenes to show how we do it. First and main is a shopping center, quite different. How we promote different activities versus an academic college of business, and the differences between followers and messages and overall platforms that we utilize. And overall marketing campaigns, so it's pretty much, it goes along with 4E, but it starts like any marketing campaign, okay, when you kind of consider it. What is your strategy? How are you going to approach? What are you going to approach? So if you are considering, I am going to start a strategy and I'm going to target high school students because we have this great new campaign and we are trying to get them to apply to Pamplin College of Business. So what's the strategy? Maybe it's video content and something really engaging, showing other young people, showcasing the benefits of Pamplin and showcasing how we're innovative as well. You know, what are the goals? What are the SMART goals? Strategic, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. We want to get 20% more students to apply to Pamplin within a three-month time period based on this content in these platforms. So make sure you have solid goals, not, oh, we want to increase followers. Well, we increase followers, that's great, but what are those followers doing? So you have to have people doing something, and that's called engagement. It's not just liking your page. Anyone can like your page. Think about yourself. If you have 1,000 people liking you and they're not doing anything, what's the purpose, right? So think about that. So think starting with your strategy and your overall goals. Then moving down like any other marketing plan does, okay? Understanding your target audience. So in this target audience, who would it be? 16 to 17-year-olds maybe within the college sector? Maybe it's even outside the area of Virginia. Why? Because outside the area of Virginia, it's more lucrative, right? They have to pay more for tuition, or we can target them, provide more scholarships to them. So then it really starts getting down to a little bit more in terms of target audiences and how we look at target audiences. Who is that 16 to 17-year-old? Is it a diverse target audience that we're going after? Do messages have to be the same? And is it just one person we're messaging? Or is it two? The parent as well, or the caregiver. Think about that. How many big decisions you make in life, but it not just is you, it's somebody else there. Whether it's healthcare, education, cars, homes, life in general, there may be multiple people making that decision. You really need to understand from a strategic standpoint, how is my message impacting one group and hopefully not offsetting the other group. Really, really critical. And then your overall campaign. How do you pull it all together? What you're doing from a strategic standpoint. Yes, from social, what's the, are you geo-targeting on Facebook? Are you sending certain things out on Twitter at certain times? Are you tweeting at other people? Are you tweeting at other organizations to build a relationship with them? What are your overall components? Then looking, of course, budget is critical. Everyone thinks social media is free. It's not free. Trust me, it is not free. Your time is not free. And also, now that we have all plugins and a lot of sponsored ads and other abilities to geo-target, social media now has the ability to really have a proven ROI. So back in the case when we talked about geo-targeting, we'll talk a little bit about how we did it with Facebook, how much we spent, and our overall ROI in the next slide. So taking a look at this is how we looked at, this is a sample from Facebook, how you can geo-target down to a specific area, down to a certain age, and all the aspects in terms of what their interests are, how we look at that. Maybe interest is football, maybe it's serving, maybe it is one of the interests of higher education, whatever it may be. So we spent $250 and went out to all areas outside of the state of Virginia, and what had occurred was, in terms of our reach, organically, which organic reach is something you do not pay for. Organic reach sometimes can be maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 people, depending on your sphere of how many followers you have and how many people are engaged. Organic, we were on 10,000 feeds. So 10,000 students that we did not target, we showed up on their feed. But paid, 50,000. So for a total of 60,000 accounts, imagine yourself sitting in front of your Facebook page and all of a sudden, Pamplin College of Business, video comes up, apply now, here's the life of Pamplin with a link, driving you, not just anywhere, but driving you to the Pamplin undergraduate website where, yes, you can click on a link and request information. So now we're tracking you, we've got a goal, and we're understanding how many of you actually completed it, and then how many of you will actually apply to Virginia Tech. Outside of that, those 60,000 accounts, what we saw, 444 shares. What does that mean? Or engagements. So a bulk of the people shared the content with others, and then a bunch also commented, this is great content, this and that. So what did we do? We engaged them. We engaged them. We excited them. We gave them experience, educated them, and then we engaged them. And understanding your overall role. Personal branding. It's probably one of the biggest things I talk about today. Do you understand the impact of your personal brand online? When you tweet something, what does that mean? When you're associated with someone online, what does that mean? There are lots of different projects and platforms that you can take a look at. Brand You Report is a really great one. So anytime you're mentioned, whether it's in Twitter or a rating scale or anything, they actually send you a report, a monthly report of how well your personal brand is doing. Obviously, you've got tools such as LinkedIn to build your personal brand. You'll also have free websites such as Strikingly. You have video websites such as Logged In. Look at your college career or your career strategically and really ensure that as you move forward that you really are building up your personal brand and associating yourself with professional aspects and moving away from that social media brand that you started possibly as a middle schooler or as a high schooler. Congratulations, you are well grown now and have the ability to really captivate people with your unique selling proposition in an integrated format, all on social media online. And just a little, for those of you that may be interested in the world of social media, the billion-dollar industry that exists, take a look at some of the salaries. And they continue to go up. And the roles continue to be divided. More and more new opportunities. Years ago was being a community manager, understanding followers of, Geico and how we build a community and a tribe online. Now there's so many different roles. I will tell you that one of the biggest roles is engagement. It's building experiences. It's within video. It's within Oculus Rift. And it's really understanding marketing strategy and goals and pulling it all together for the ultimate ROI. That's it for Chapter 3. We'll be back with Chapter 4. In a different location, but with the same person. Thanks again. See you soon.